We give them a low ticket offer. It's like they feel stupid saying no to that offer. So we have a really good inflow of new people to onboard. And then I qualify and reframe people with the intro, like his script, Jonathan's script, the video, and the scorecard. And then we proceed to onboard as normal. All right. What's up, everybody? I'm here with my friend Pete Kiner of Client Support Pros. Now, this is going to be a really fun video. And if you've seen any of my recent content, in fact, I think I did a video maybe 2 weeks ago where I talked about slow onboarding. We're going to be talking about that today. And primarily, we're doing this for the purposes of keeping clients a lot longer and being able to upsell them appropriately to increase the lifetime value. So keep them longer, make more money. That's the point. Now, Pete is here with me. Pete runs a company called Client Support Pros, and we use some of his services. We've got an awesome member of our staff who I think isn't like, Jonathan, shout out Jonathan, is a member of our staff. But we maybe got Jonathan in a roundabout sort of way. So before we jump into this, I'll let Pete do a quick introduction on Client Support Pros, and it'll probably make a little bit more sense why I've got him here to discuss this particular topic. So Pete, 30-second elevator pitch. What is Client Support Pros all about, and why is Jonathan so amazing in my agency?
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Great to be here. We, Client Support Pros provides basically white label account management services for marketing agencies. That's the short story. But we slow things down and we try to make it more of a client experience than we do just providing account management. And it's very important to build relationships and slow down the process.
For us, so if you're watching this, you're on the UpHex channel. So, I own a software called UpHex, and that is for agencies. But I came from the agency space. I still own an agency, and that agency is called PatientStream. And we, you can't, when it comes to delivering a really awesome service and customer support, all that kind of stuff, having people be happy and get really fast, good, proactive customer support is a huge part of it. And staff employee turnover is a real issue. And it's the thing I hate most. Probably the entire business is hiring, retraining, going through that whole thing again. And so this time around, instead of doing the good old fashioned way where I don't even remember how we made our last hire, how we got a referral or posted a job, trained that person up, watched that person, I'm not going to say whatever, be on for 6 months and then churn. I said, I don't have time to do that. So we just went out to Pete and said, hey man, this is the job we have. This is what it needs to do. Can you put somebody in that will kick butt at doing those things? And it's been a game changer for us. So I will be a testimonial for you right now, Pete. If you guys run an agency and you want to, you need people to fulfill help with support and like honestly anything, they're like a concierge approach. Okay, it's not just chat. It's like these people are like members of your team. All right, now that that's out of the way, okay, that way people understand like who we are, why we're talking.
Who is this?
Yeah, well, you have a superpower, right? And the superpower is slow, like you said, slowing things down, breaking them down, not focusing on the symptoms of an issue, but going upstream and solving the source, right? And that's how we really give people a good experience. Now, back to slow onboarding. All right. When it comes to your sales funnel, okay, I was able to back in last year, and I haven't done it again. I'm going to do it again, probably. I was able to add 127 new customers by doing a webinar 3 times. Okay. And that was awesome. I mean, that's kind of like, if you talk to any other agency owner, they'd be like, oh man, that's so sweet. Well, it is sweet, but you want to know what the reality is when you bring on that many clients. And it was in 2 months, that many clients in that short amount of time. And you don't have like a really refined back end. It's not as awesome as you think, right? You get a lot of, onboarding issues. You can imagine if you run an agency, imagine onboarding 4 clients in a week. Now imagine onboarding 40 in a week. Okay. Things break at scale. Now that said, the top of the funnel, the actual mechanism of getting clients through a webinar is awesome. But how can you do it to where you can automate and put that thing on autopilot and then make it so the back end of your customer journey doesn't get bogged down because people are either being onboarded too quick, or meaning like you're missing things, you get, well, this person came in and they had this issue and now we got to go back to this step, like all those nuanced things that can happen. Okay. And so that's just the reality of what happened when I did that back, a year and a half ago or so. Now, moving forward, I'm thinking, listen, it ain't broke. Acquisition is not broke. But what is broke is I don't want to sit there and slow down the acquisition and not know how to upsell people, not know how to keep them longer. So we came up with this whole idea, and I actually got this. I can't say who gave it to me because the guy who gave it to me, he keeps people in his agency forever. I said, dude, what are you doing? He's like, we just do it slow. we do this little chunk. We onboard them and set up just their ads. Then we onboard them a second time a week later, and we do this, and so on and so forth. Okay. And I was like, that is so genius. And it's genius because beforehand, the goal was to, okay, get them in. How quickly can you set up their entire account? How quickly can you do all of that? I think Elon Musk has this quote. I really like it. He says, the biggest problem with engineers is they try and fix problems that shouldn't even exist, right? Meaning they're engineering solutions to a problem that shouldn't even be there in the first place. There should be no issue with that thing, right? So a lot of the things that we see people, if you're using high level and you're giving people like a chat widget, and you're giving them reviews, and you're giving them a website, and you're giving them funnels, and you're giving them Facebook ads, and go down the list. You give them all of those things on your onboarding call. That's super impressive to you, but it's overwhelming to them. Yep. Okay. So I've got Pete on. I am live right now creating my next version of my slow onboarding process. We've been doing it for a while. It works great. But now the idea is we're going to automate parts of it. Okay. And so again, this is kind of like, hey, if you run an agency and you want to see what it takes to run an agency, these are the kind of situations that we look at. And these are the types of processes that we come in with. And then a guy like Pete's like, okay, well, let's create an SOP around that. There's a simple way to do it. Let's simplify this. Let's get rid of that. And we go from there. So, Pete, I want to automate my onboarding call number 1. What's the best way for us to set up? Like, you want me to just tell you kind of like my idea on how to do that? Or what's the best way to go through a consult like this to where you can help me achieve my goal on this slow onboarding call number 1?
Sure, absolutely. And I think they always say, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. And when you take the whole concept of high level and try to cram it all into that first phone call, you're right. They come off of it, their head is swimming. They don't know where to go next. And all of a sudden now you flip the switch, the leads start coming in, and it's just an implosion waiting to happen. Yeah. So I think figuring out what do they need first on that first onboarding call to be successful with those leads, right? Yeah. And from there, you can always add on the additions. So what I would do is break it down to what do they need today to be successful in their first week?
Okay. What do they need today? Okay. Well, good. So what do they need today to be successful in their first week? Now, I think does some of that, if I'm looking at that, I guess that would be based on what did I sell them, right? Because if I'm like, if you're using UpHex, that doesn't mean you have to lead with that feature as your core selling. You might be like, hey, maybe you like offer websites for $20. I don't know. Right. So that probably is around your core offering. Is that,
Yep.
I'm trying to, like, if you're a person that doesn't lead with Facebook ads like I do, and there's a lot of agencies that don't, they'll lead with, reviews, for example.
Sure.
Right. Or specifically, a lot of people lead with database reactivation. That's what they lead with.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
think if you start out with that core offer, I mean, the core thing that you sold them on is what you need to start with. Get them
Okay.
orientated with that. All the other bells and whistles can come afterwards because they're a great add-on, but that's what can add the overwhelm in the beginning.
Okay. So we have a written out DIY onboarding process, which I'm actually going to include in the description below. I'll include our process from beginning to end. It's an entire SOP. It's our day one. It's our current day one. It's not the new day one that I'm looking to develop. Okay. Now, maybe Pete, maybe I could just throw my hypothesis at you and you could poke a couple holes in it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking, here's my goal. My goal is I want to turn this webinar funnel back on. Okay. And I want to, as much as possible, I want to not do demo calls as much anymore. Okay. But I realize that that's going to mean that if I do a webinar and people have a low ticket offer, that's my idea right now, low ticket offer. Then when they come onto that onboarding call, they're going to come in with different levels of awareness, like knowing what the product is. Okay. And then different levels of buy-in. Okay. Now, as I look at that, and by the way, I came up with those objections by doing a workshop between me, Heather, who works for PatientStream, and Jonathan, who is a client support pros, but he's part of my team. And I said, Jonathan, if I were to do this low ticket offer, get people in on an onboarding call, how do you think that would work? And he's the one who's like, well, you're probably going to have people who have this issue, who don't know this, who like a couple of those things. I'm like, oh, he's right. It doesn't mean it's not a good idea. It just means like, okay, well, what then do I need to do? So here's what we came up with. The framework, and again, in the description section below, I will have our current DIY onboarding protocol from like the first thing we do to the very end when their account is set up. But the modification is this. I was telling Jonathan, I said, well, here's what we'll do. We'll create an intro script for him to say, something to the effect of, hey, my name is Jonathan. I'm here to help you with your account today. We're really excited to have you. Now, I know a lot of people come in, either they've seen YouTube content, a friend refers them, whatever the case may be. But we want to make sure that everybody that gets on an onboarding call hits, the objective, hits the goal today. Okay. So I'm going to start you out with a quick little intake. I'm going to ask you a few questions. And then we're going to watch this orientation video. I don't know if we call it that, right? And they watch an orientation video. Okay. The orientation video is sub 10 minutes. And the whole idea is to take that moment in that video and identify why they have failed in the past. Okay. Identify the new story that we're going to tell, like the new, my buddy Lawton says, like Paradise Island, the new Paradise Island, right? The dream. Okay. And then the singular goal, like the action item today. That way, when they get off of that, they're like, oh, I'm here to get my first Facebook ad campaign turned on with Jonathan. Right.
Yep.
And then by the time they get off that video, Jonathan will have, and we're calling that intake thing, I'm calling it a scorecard, whatever. We just want to have a place where they're starting so we can give them a grade. And he would say something to the effect of, and by the way, if you're watching this, I literally am getting a consult from Pete right now. Okay. So I'm telling him my whole idea, and hopefully it's okay, Pete. Hopefully you don't need to, whatever, we'll poke holes in it later. Okay.
All good.
So when we get done, the next part of the scorecard is, hey, awesome, I'm excited. Before we get into setting up your ads, I've got two more minutes. We want to finish this profile. Maybe we wouldn't call it a scorecard. On a scale from 1 to 10, if you were to get 10 leads this week, would you be able to, and then grade them, like have them grade themselves, right? Jonathan gives no feedback. He just gets their answers and go, awesome, I'll send this to the next person in line, which is Heather. Okay. Then he goes through and he picks up on the DIY onboarding call protocol as it is, setting it up, doing the whole thing, helping them turn on their first campaign. And then at the end, awesome, this has been great. I'm excited. I've scheduled your next call with Heather on this date. Does that work? Awesome. Done. So that's my idea. Okay. My idea is that we bring them in through the top of the funnel in a variety of ways. I want to lead with the webinar. Okay. We give them a low ticket offer. So the friction is like they feel stupid saying no to that offer. So we have a really good inflow of new people to onboard. And then I qualify and reframe people with the intro, like his script, Jonathan's script, the video, and the scorecard. And then we proceed to onboard as normal. So if I were to macro it, that's how I would frame that out. What say you? What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great process because once you have that SOP laid out, right, it can be duplicated over and over and over again, whether you've got one onboarding person or 10 onboarding people. So as you scale that, like you said, when you've got 127 people in 60 days, that's a lot of people. And so when we add in additional resources for you to scale, it becomes very trainable, very easy to duplicate your team with very minimal resource. And I think when you have the objective set at the beginning of the call, what you're going to accomplish on that call, it keeps things on track. Because how many times do you do an onboarding call and you wind up all over the place because your client has all these questions? But if you keep it on track, it's going to streamline it and have a singular focus. And so I think your idea works really well.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think a lot of people would think, well, that seems like the Holy Grail, like the silver bullet. I'm wondering what kind of holes can get poked in it. Like I'm wondering what I'm not seeing. And maybe, again, this is live, this is real time. Is there anything in your mind where I might be estimating my skills a little bit too much? Or do you think there's anything that, is going to jump out and bite me, or you think that'll work just as is?
Yeah, I think for the most part, it'll work. Like we talked about a little bit ago. We've done thousands of onboardings for agencies, and we've seen it all. We've seen 85-year-old Bob, the insurance guy that doesn't even know hardly how to turn on his computer, to somebody that wants to dive in and build out their funnels and build out everything on day one. And so it's a matter of figuring out where are they at in that spectrum through your questionnaire or your quiz, and narrowing that down to that single focus. And I think that will help avoid a lot of potential issues, because you're not trying to do 100 things on one call. I've seen onboarding calls with some agencies take 2 hours because they're going through everything, and they get done. Their check-in call a week or two later, the client's like, did we talk about that? I don't even remember going through that. And it's because they forgot it. And so it's that overwhelm. So I think the only thing that you're going to run into from a poking a hole standpoint may be just the normal technological issues. When you go to play that orientation video, you may have some issues with sound, things like that. So part of me, I'm wondering, does it make sense to have them watch that prior to the call so that it's kind of the lead up to the call?
Here was my thinking around that. And I'm glad you asked that. That's actually really good. I think because Jonathan actually asked the same thing, by the way. So I like that your people think the same way you do. The reason I didn't think it was a great idea is because I bet you 10% of the people are actually going to watch it. So you're going to end up doing it there anyway. Okay. That's number one. That's number one. I also want so that scorecard I was telling you about, it's not done yet. Heather is working on it. But one of the things I would like Jonathan, every person that comes through, one of the things I want them, like Jonathan at the very beginning, that scorecard is going to be like, okay, what's your website? What's your Facebook page? Like just very generic stuff, right? When they're on that call, I want Jonathan to go over to their website, to Google them, and to like do a little bit of initial research. How many reviews do they have? Do they have a pixel on their Facebook page? How old? I'm sorry, not on their website. Do they have any engagement on, like, are they doing anything with it? And a couple of things like that. And I want him to just take that time during the call to fill out that scorecard. And I don't want him to ask them. So if they're like occupied and he knows that's his thing, I'm like, okay, well, that's 10 minutes or whatever the video length is.
Sure.
Where he can allot to complete that task. And then when they're done, he finishes the subjective part, like give yourself a grade on this, give yourself a grade on this, give yourself a grade on this. And then he's done. Right. So that was kind of my thinking. The other thing is like, well, I need time for him or whoever's doing the onboarding call to give an assessment of that unique profile.
Yeah. And I think that concept of giving the client that busy work to do while they're on the other side doing the research, I think it's brilliant because it keeps them occupied, so that they're not wondering, well, what is Jonathan doing now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good concept.
So here's the one thing that is a question mark in my head. And I don't know about this. I don't know about this. But okay. As soon as, and if you look in the DIY onboarding script, in fact, I'm going to look at there right now. At the very bottom, it says, let's see here. Okay, here's the script. Okay, guys, I'm going to send you a video right now. Please watch it in the next 24 hours. It's going to help you understand what to do once your leads start coming in, right? So then we send them a video. Now, the reason we don't cover this on the onboarding call because, again, it's too much, okay? But we do the onboarding call. Hopefully it's sub 1 hour. I think we can do it. I think we currently do them in about 45 minutes. I think with the video, I think that will actually maybe condense. I don't know. Condense. We'll see. But sending them a video and the whole thing, it's like a 13-minute video. It's like, hey, when your leads come in, here's where they're going to be. Here's what to do. Here's like that kind of thing. That's what we have right now. I mean, is it even going to work? Like, are people going to watch that video? What do you think?
Well, yeah, and you always run into that as a concern with sending them something and relying on them to have it not go into their spam folder, to all of these things, forgetting about it before the call. And so having them watch the video on the call does make a lot of sense because you're holding them accountable. You're making sure they can never say, well, I never watched that video. No, you did. I've got it documented here. We did it on that call.
Yeah.
Because whenever you give them homework, they always have excuses, right? And
that's the piece. So
yeah,
maybe that, because so the next thing is we do a 1 week follow-up call. Now the goal of the 1 week follow-up call is not to redo what we did, right? It's to go back and say, hey, you got 15 leads in the last week.
Right.
Let's see what your numbers are. Like you should be contacting this, you should be doing that. And I don't want to necessarily watch that 13-minute video on that call. Like that to me seems like that's a tactical thing. That's not like the videos I'm talking about are not tactical videos. They are like reprogramming what we're doing videos. See what I mean?
Yeah. So one thing that we've done before is, I mean, you'll know if they watch the video or not based on certain behaviors. And so if you give them something, when you're completed with this video, do this action item, right?
Yeah.
That's your way then of knowing prior to the call that they watched it or not. It's one thing that we've done before.
Okay. I don't know. Heather will probably have a better idea of what that would be, but basically like, hey, and once you watch this video, what we could do? Actually, I think I heard this. We send in a test. As soon as we see their thing, we send in a test lead. So once you finish this video, you'll notice there's a test lead in your pipeline. Go in and do this one action. That's a good idea.
Yep.
Test lead. Boom.
And the test lead could have your support email address and phone number as the contact information. You could have them text that lead something, and Jonathan or Heather then would receive that text from the client.
Now I wrote down minute 24. That's where we're at. I'm gonna have Jonathan and Heather come back and watch this so they can figure out how to implement. But no, okay. That is my thing. It's like that video needs to go out. I cannot do that on an onboarding call. Like that's just
not a 30-minute video, no.
Yeah. But hey, watch this video at the end. Hey, good news. Like you've got a test lead in. Go do this action just to confirm you know what to do with a lead. We've checked off in that one that one day one protocol. We've checked off the singular goal, the reframing of what they're buying, because my goal is on the next call is upsell time.
Right? Yep.
Upsell time. Like I want to say, hey, like your average response time is 24 hours right now. Okay. Is that because you don't understand the tool? It looks like you didn't complete this one step. And it's a different positioning. Like if I go to the doctor, and my agency works with doctors, if I go to the doctor and they've got a staff member on, it's not like we're like getting this person in trouble. It's like, hey, we know we're throwing a lot at you. Okay. We're trying to simplify this first part. Did you see this video? All right, let's go back to this step, right? That way we can check that box off before we move on. Yeah. And then the business owner feels like, wow, they're training my staff. They're holding them accountable. They're making sure that we like get the result, the outcome. Okay.
Yeah, I'll share a story with you. We had, it's probably 4 years ago, we had a client that we called just to do a check-in call. It was probably a week or two after they started, and called them and said, hey, you've gotten 32 leads in your first week. How are the leads going? And his response was, great. I've called 5 of them. And so we realized, whoops, we need to make sure that we're training properly in regards to how quickly you're responding to those leads, what's happening. And so we reframed it right away for them, and they just started nailing it out of the park after that.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that they know what to do with those leads when they come in.
That's awesome. Well, this has been very beneficial and a little bit vulnerable at the same time. This is something I'm doing in real time. I have a webinar tomorrow. It is a low ticket offer webinar. Jonathan's probably going to hate me because I don't have the other video done yet because doing this again in real time, but I think it'll be fine. Anyway, so I appreciate you kind of working this through with me. Before we end, for like the people who watch this are SaaS people, like people who run an agency like mine are using UpHex. Maybe one final pitch from you. And by the way, when I say pitch, I'm saying as people need to hire, the people I bring onto my channel, I want them to be the people. I already pay Pete and I give him my money because they do a good job. So maybe provide a, what other than what Jonathan does for my agency, what types of positions can you fulfill for the agency roles?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's kind of expanded as we've grown over the last several years. Everybody that works for us is U.S. based. They're here in one of our 2 support facilities, either in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and or Dallas, Texas. And we do that for a reason. I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to quality. I want to make sure that the quality is there for the agency owners. But we can do everything from the live chat support to providing whether it's the high level and or UpHex support. We can help provide that support, answering those questions, resetting passwords, all the mundane things that come in, all the way to the full account management side of things. We also provide lead handlers for some agencies where we're calling their leads, setting up appointments, things like that. And so basically any front-facing client communications that need to happen, we can do. Agency owners tell me all the time, you mean you do everything that we don't want to do? I said, exactly. We do all the communications that you don't want to do.
Well, and just to like add a little asterisk onto the end of that, agency owners all think, well, they're not going to do it as good as I could. They're going to, it's not going to be great. It's not going to be whatever. All I can say is based off of my own personal experience, Jonathan, do we call him a VA? Is he a VA? We'll call him a VA. People know that, people use that nomenclature. It's more like a concierge VA, right? Yeah. Jonathan is incredible. And he goes above and beyond. When he first started with us, if there was something newer, like in our agency space that he did not understand, he would shoot me a Loom video, not just me, whoever the team member is, he would shoot them a Loom video and be like, hey, this happened. This is the protocol I would recommend. Or what do you do? This is the protocol I would recommend. And then he updates the SOP, and then you don't hear from him again on that issue. I was blown away. So we were telling our team, like, I'm not hiring any more like employees. Like, why would I do that? I mean, this is a plug and play solution. So I vouch for you guys. We'll have in the description section below on this video, we'll also have a link over to Client Support Pros. It's clientsupportpros.com, right, Pete?
Yep.
Okay. And you can learn more about what services they have, how much they charge, and what services are right for you. So thanks for watching. Pete, thanks for being here, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
And we will see you on the next video.